Hello and welcome to another episode of the We Have a Meeting podcast. Today we're very honoured. We've got a dynamic business leader who's made lasting impacts on marketing and leadership. They served as the Chief Marketing Officer and Vice President of Eastman KODAK Company during a critical digital transformation, authored influential books like Think Big, Act Bigger, and a sought-after keynote speaker. Quite a lot of accolades there. He's also a TV personality with appearances on shows like Celebrity Apprentice. So today we're very, very lucky to have a real game changer in the business world. It's Jeffrey Hayzlett. Jeffrey, how are you?
I am wonderful. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, no problem at all. So we always start the podcast off the same way. So who are you and what problem do you solve?
Oh, that's a great question to be able to start it off with. I help people scale businesses. That's what I do. I serve on 14 corporate boards today, 4 of them publicly traded companies. Half of those I own. I bought and sold over 250 businesses in my career, about 25 billion in transactions. Was a former Fortune 100 officer, which is a very elite position in itself because there's only, when you look at Fortune 100 companies that having, 5 officers at each company, that's a very elite group. In fact, there are more people playing professional football. Now, whether you call that soccer or American football, either way, there are more people playing those sports than there are Fortune 1000 officers. So, so the problem I solve is helping people scale businesses. I've been doing it all my life.
Wow. Okay. So let's go a little bit deeper onto that then. So I imagine you're almost like a business doctor now. So you've seen lots and lots of patients that have had shared symptoms, right? So typically when someone starts working with you and they're having those problems scaling, what do those symptoms look like that they're finding hard to overcome?
It's a great question. And by the way, it's funny you should say business doctor because someone tried to have me do a show called The Business Doctor at one
Oh,
point.
wow.
And they ended up going with somebody much better looking, but nonetheless, the show never succeeded. So maybe they should have stuck with somebody that wasn't as good looking. Maybe, I don't know. You can always get a sense of it just by walking into the business. I think the first thing, is taking a pulse. You might call it a pulse. I talk about mood. You can get a sense of a mood of a business, and I call it the pulse, just by watching, listening, watching, seeing the cadence of communications, the way in which they walk around the office, if they happen to have a physical office. Do they care about their website? Do they care about their landing pages? Are they getting back in the sequencing, in terms of marketing? There's a lot of things that you could look at. Or just, jump on a plane. Imagine jumping on a plane and you want to get a sense of what the company's like. Sit back by where this flight attendants sit. And you'll hear them talk and bitch and moan about their salaries, their work hours, or whatever. That gives you a sense that things aren't going to go well with that airline, right? So those are the kind of things. But so my feeling is you can see a lot of that or sense a lot of it just in the energy of conversations and the mood and cadence of the business. That's one area. Obviously, finances, you can see that. In terms of the mood of the employees is one of the big ones that you could take a look at because almost everybody I talk to, I have a show called All Business with Jeffrey Hayzlett, which airs, on C-Suite TV and C-Suite Radio, our podcast network, where we have 450 podcasts, 22,000 episodes, 50 million downloads. But I always talk to the CEOs of various companies, and the biggest problem they're always solving is talent. It's always talent. And so talent's a big part of problems inside of the company. I always used to have this joke that it'd be fun in business if it weren't for customers and employees, So there you go.
I agree with you so much. People who would want to work with them, Jeffrey.
Yeah, exactly.
So you go into all these businesses, I guess. If you could, I find sometimes working with people, one of the big things that people lack is like a self-awareness. So if you could shake every business, so you're going to grab a metaphorical body and you're going to shake every business leader and you're going to give them the self-awareness. What is the biggest mistake they're making that they're not aware of typically in the business?
They're paying attention to themselves. That's the biggest issue. We tell stories to ourselves. We say that we're this. I mean, when I got to KODAK, let's give you a prime example. When I got to KODAK, everyone would tell me that our website was the most visited website and this photo that we had every day was the most visited thing that we'd ever seen. And so many people, it said 2 million people came every day to go and look at the photo of the day. All right? When when I got there, that was being said. I left that company 4 years later, got it? And it was still being talked about 9 years later. So people are still telling that story. And so, your hubris of your success, the story you tell yourself rather than prove it every single time. I love the way Zach started the conversation out, that you ask people what problem are they solving. My son, who I think is one of the best marketers, I used to think I was one of the best marketers in the world. Now, don't think that's bragging, because if it's true, it's not bragging, okay? Now, that's a little bit of American bravado, but my son is even better than I am at marketing, and he said to me, Dad, he said, what problem are we solving? And that's, Zach, has stuck with me ever since. And every time I go into a business, every time I go in to talk to, an entrepreneur or someone that's doing a business, I always say, hey, what problem are you solving? Or I'm thinking, what problem are they solving? I think a lot of the times, Jack, we don't spend the time to ask ourselves that question. And then once we asked ourselves the question, don't set it and forget it. Keep changing it, because the problem and all the things that go along with it keep shifting as we go. And COVID's taught us that, because days became weeks, weeks became months, months became years. The speed of which we have to attend to these things has changed on us, and we constantly have to adapt, change, or die. Otherwise, we're going to fail in business every day.
I think that's so true. And you've probably been in very similar rooms to me where I'm like, what problem are you solving? And they go, well, we're a really shiny CRM that has this feature and that. And it's like, no, what is it solving? So Jeffrey, obviously we're really big into sales and sales psychology. And you could probably talk about the same kind of psychology principles that fall into like marketing. I think there's probably like a lot of crossover. So you were CMO at KODAK during a period of significant change in the photography industry. So what were the marketing strategies or psychology that helped KODAK adapt? And what were you kind of like, what were some of the big things that you helped change when you came in?
Well, everybody, when you get there, you got 180,000 employees doing $180 billion in terms of total gross sales. My marketing budget was $17 billion. I mean, yeah. And, you get into that, 7,500 marketing people. I came from a company of 3 people right before that. So, to step into a role like that first of all, it was a dream come true. I love my time there. It gave me such great scale, hope, and everything else. But at the same time, I had to look at things just like I were on Main Street in a small town in Bristol. I had to look at things, that as though I were without the zeros. And so that's what I would do. My father-in-law, he would come to me, he was a farmer and rancher, and he goes, how do you do this? How do you make these big decisions? I said, I just take all the zeros off. And if it was a good decision in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where I'm from, a town of 200,000 people, then it should be a good decision on Wall Street. Because Main Street and Wall Street, there's no difference, just a number, different types of numbers. But the first thing you have to overcome is, again, getting back to the core thing of what we're trying to do. What's the focus of what we're trying to do? And so when you step into a big organization that's failing or hasn't been doing well, they have these stories, but everybody would come to me and they would say, make us like we used to be. Make us like we used to be. And I'm going, look, I don't look like I used to when I was 20. I look better today than I did back then, right? You have to have that mentality that your better days are ahead of you, not your good days are behind you. And so, because if you think your best days are behind you, you've lost before you've begun. So you have to get into that mood, that change of our direction and focus is on this and the shiny object or the thing that we're going to solve, not what it used to be. And so, when I got to KODAK, give you a secret, they let the trademark KODAK Moments expire when I got there. And I'm going, are you kidding me? That's a core of what we do. And if you think about it, they used to say, well, we make this roll of film. Well, they never made a roll of film. They did. And they got 90% margins. Most recognizable product in the world was that little box that it came in. Everybody knew what it was. Everybody knew the logo. It's one of the most favorable logos of its time. We all think of KODAK Moments. It's the only product that people would actually run back into a burning building to save, if you think about it. But they were never in the film business. They were in the emotional technology business. They would make, manage, and move images and information. That's what we did. And so if you then said, okay, we're not in the film business, but what business? We're in the emotional technology business. Now we're reframing the direction of where we're going to go. Not that, oh, the film business is down. Who cares? Film, who cares? Now it's digital cameras. We make all the stuff that goes inside of this camera. That's what we do. And most people don't know that. All of today, if your iPhone, your Android, whatever you get, the technology that's inside of that for the camera is still owned by Kodak, right? But yet nobody knows that. They think, oh, look what iPhone did. Look what Android did. Look what Samsung did. Look what all these companies do. So it's about shifting that focus, shifting that purpose of what you were to what you need to be, right? I mean, and it's that simple for all of us, is to be able to sit down and say, what problem am I solving? What do these people need or want, right? Need and want, and then go solve it. Because, you talk, Jack, about the psychology of it. Sorry, by the way, you put a quarter in, you get to go for the full ride here. That's the thing with me. So, it's just a fundamental thing for us to sit down and decide. Marketing is the inception of the idea all the way through customer satisfaction. And so when you as a chief marketing officer, if I'm sitting down, I'm looking across all lines of business, all lines of functions, and yet have no authority on any of them in order to convince them this is what we have to do and where we need to go.
There's loads of different directions I can take that in now. One thing that you hinted on that was interesting was take us back where we need to be as a goal. So almost a sense of nostalgia. I'm guessing like Kodak, that makes perfect sense. But have you seen that in other businesses that you've worked in as well, where that's been said to you?
Oh, yeah, lots of times. I mean, there are especially more traditional established businesses. They put a stake in the ground and this is who we are, right? And they base it on what they have done in the past rather than what they're trying to solve for the future, And so if you ground yourself on, all the things we've always done it and we've always done it this way rather than who cares? And most employees coming into the world today are going, who cares? When I went to Kodak, and I was so excited to go, I jumped on a plane a week early. Before I passed the urine test or anything, I flew to the headquarters because I was so excited to go to work. And I remember sitting down to this 22, 23-year-old gal that was next to me on the plane, and I'm trying to get in a conversation with her because I want her to ask me what I do so I can tell her, I'm the chief marketing officer, one of the biggest freaking companies in the world. And so she starts talking about herself, yada, 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 like I want to listen to any of that. But, nonetheless, I paid attention. Then she stopped and she turned to me and she said, what do you do? And I said, well, I'm the chief marketing officer of the Eastman Kodak Company. And she turned to me and said, well, who's that? Right? So, and it's an absolutely true story. So you think about, what you think is relevant, it doesn't make a difference. It's what your customers think is relevant, So whatever you did back here, great, nice job, keep it up, But what are you doing for me tomorrow? Not just what are you doing for me today, but what are you doing for me tomorrow? And so I think that's that's when I see great entrepreneurs. I mean, there's some good people. I used to call on Jeff Bezos years ago when he was in a one-room office in Amazon when I was trying to sell him book technology, and then, of course, Elon and others. You see these folks that they cause tension. They're chief tension officers. That's what they do. And that's what I think most of us should be as chief tension officers in the company. We should constantly be pushing, as a leader, you want to go from point A to B, but you almost have to be irrational and say you want to go to C, and all your employees are thinking you're nuts. Well, but that's the only way you're going to get everybody to be, is by going even further. And so it's your job, as a leader of the business, as an entrepreneur, or as a CEO, or any C-suite leader, to be the smartest person in the room, because God knows, if you ask my wife or my children, they're going to tell you that I'm not the smartest guy in the room. But my job is to be the most strategic, right? And that's the role that we have to play. And I think that's the thing, Zach, that you want to keep in mind as you're solving these problems, is you got to look way ahead of this and see that, see where it's going. And Jack, to get back in your point, whether with a shiny CRM system that does this and that, who cares? Or we're just like Salesforce, who cares? Or we're the only ones that do that. Well, if you're the only ones that do that, there's not enough people to go after, by the way. That's just my 2 cents. That means nobody has seen the problem. There's no riches in the niches there because there is no niche. It's a neat. So, those are the things I kind of keep in mind as we go.
Amazing. And you've hinted at it a few times, but I was just wondering if you could talk to us about the role that emotion plays in both selling and marketing strategies that you've seen in terms of a route to customer acquisition.
Well, I think emotion plays a big part. It's easy for a CMO to go and get his team to sell two things: sex and comedy, right? It's harder when you can make them cry. But if you make them cry, by the way, great TV shows, that's what they try to do. When I was a judge on Celebrity Apprentice, for 3 years with Donald Trump, or when I was doing my own, I had another show on Bloomberg, I wasn't trying to make them cry, but I was trying to bring forth certain kinds of emotions, because if I could do that, great TV, right? And why is that? Because that's really getting to the core of the problem you're solving, to the things that are wanted or needed. And so that's, I think, when you can elicit emotions from customers where they want to be raving fans. I mean, the job today for a leader in the business is to create great content. And I don't care if you're a dry cleaner in Manchester where Jack lives, right? Or you're down in Cardiff and you're a dry cleaner. You have to be the doctor of spots, right? You can't just be a dry cleaner, because there's 119 of them in the city, or whatever the number is. But you have to become known as the doctor of spots. So you have to create content to tell people you're the best at what you do and show them how to do it, even if you show it to them for free, that they'll even want to come to you because you're the best, right? That's eliciting emotions. And so great content drives communities, which are your fans, your customers, and then they become your customers, which then gives you commerce. Content drives community, which then gets to commerce. And that's the game we're in. And you used to be in the game where it was just, brand blah, throwing up, vomiting information as much as you could, spraying and praying that it was going to land somewhere with broadcast and everything else. But now we're in this world of segments of one, where we select and deselect content. We filter it out, where you can't even break through emails, or you've really got to get to that person. And what happens is you got to be real smart. So you got to create great content, and that great content builds you a community from the community.
I think this leads on that leads on very nicely to my next question. You must have had so many. You strike me as the kind of man that people might stop you in the street and kind of try and pitch their business ideas to you, yeah, exactly. So I feel like that's the vibe.
I had 2 calls this morning for people trying to raise money. I got a guy that called me for $15 million.
Right, so yeah, twice today. So yeah, good. We're on the right track. So if it happens all the time, what is for you as somebody that sat there with this pile of money that you might go into and you might not? What is it that makes a good idea and a crap idea? And what's a good investment and a bad investment? What's a safe bet? What's not? What do you look for?
People first. Yeah, have you done it before? I look at the team. You can watch people who have had 4 or 5 exits, and they keep getting funded. Why? Because they're a great team. They really good at what they're doing. It doesn't make a difference what the cure for disease, political candidate, the best widget, whatever. But if you've got a great team, you can sell anything, right? You can. And by the way, the key is you can sell anything where you maintain it. I mean, where you create a great base of people that want. You sell it once, it doesn't work. That's not good. So you've got to, what I'm talking about, they create great products, great services, solve great needs. They do a good job. So the people, have you done it before? Do I believe in you? What's your transparency, sincerity? Are you realistic about, what the prospects are? I had somebody call me yesterday about a new, some software that they put in that basically eliminates fraud in financial transactions. Well, that's pretty big. Well, tell me how you're doing it today, because it's basically for credit card transactions. And he's saying, well, today we're doing only $200,000 a year. Well, that doesn't sound like much. Well, Mr. Hayzlett, we didn't want to overdo it. We just needed enough to go through to prove it would be true. Because we're in this burn stage, and if we're in the burn stage, why would we want to do more when we're still in the burn stage and we don't want to affect anyone poorly or negatively in any way, shape, or form? Well, that was okay, dude. That was smart. is to be able to tell me that. So I look at teams first. I also look at the scale, what concur, what other players in the market. If you start telling me we're the only one that's in this market, I'm going to shut you down in 3 seconds, because it tells me you're the only candidate in the beauty contest. Well, that I would like to see all the other women, by the way. That would I would appreciate that. But if I'm only going to look at you, maybe it's not the best of the bunch, So, those are the kind of things that I tend to look at: the market, the potential for the market, what's been done in the past, what is the burn, how fast, and some of those you can get right away. I mean, you know it, you smell it, you feel it, you don't even have to be in the room. You could be on a Zoom call, and you get the energy of what's there and what the potential is. And then there are other ones you go like, man, this ain't gonna fly, and it doesn't get past the first 118 seconds. And 118 is, I wrote about this in my first book. I call it the digital elevator pitch. 8 seconds is the average attention span of an adult, because I know that to be true because I looked it up on the internet, right? So 8 seconds is what you got to hook me. And in sales, as you know, or marketing terminus, it's what's the one phrase that you're going to say that gets the lean-in factor. You know what I'm talking about, Zach? Where somebody says something so crazy, you go, what? And you want to hear the rest of it, right? Then you got 110 seconds, which is the average elevator ride in New York City. From the time you press the button, wait for the doors to open, you step on, ride up or ride down, and get off. So in 118 seconds, tell me what the hell you got. Give me that 8 seconds, that hook, right? Like you just said, what's your purpose? I help people scale business, right? That's it. That's all I do. And I have a business called Tallgrass. It's a public relations and marketing firm that I'm chairman of. And our saying is, if you want to run with the big dogs, you have to learn to piss in the tall grass. That's our saying right there, all right? And if you're offended by that, I don't want to work with you. Got it? Because you're not going to do the hard stuff that needs to do. You're not going to use the language that we're going to use, because we're going to use some salty language. And we say right away, if you were sitting across from me, I say we only work with high growth clients, and then we shut up. Now, if you start asking me what a high growth client is, already I don't want to work with you. That's a but usually the people across from me now start to convince me why they're high growth. So therefore, I want to work with them. That's kind of the elevator pitch. That's the defining, limiting, filtering of who you want to work with and how you want to work it. And so that 118 is so important for a startup business, or for any business, to say this is what we do. And if I were to tell you at KODAK, we're in the plate business, we're in the film business, we're in the, whatever, rather than saying we're in the emotional technology business. Boom. We make, we manage, we move images and information. So anything that you want to put digitally, on paper, or anywhere, film, or on a screen, or anywhere in the world, that's what we do.
We've only been talking for 23 minutes, Jeffrey, and I already can understand now why you've had such a successful career. I've learned more in 23 minutes than I learned in my 3 years of university. But with sticking on the same subject, obviously you've had a lot of conversation. Do you have any, I'll let you choose which way you want to take it, but do you have anything anecdotal of somebody that ticked all the boxes and nailed it when it came to that 118 second elevator pitch, or somebody that came in and it was a total car crash? I'll let you choose which way you want to take it.
Well, I mean, I don't like to give examples of bad things, but all the time. You just said it. If somebody comes in and says, well, we're the CRM above, what the hell is that? What is that? You're talking language internally, right? So for instance, we recently, the C-Suite Network, okay, which we serve about 350,000 executives across the globe, mostly in the US and Canada. We have executive members who come in. We have media businesses that are using our media to be able to do it. But we just recently launched a white label product that we OEM'd, and it's a CRM system, all right? And it has a CRM, it has email marketing, it has texting, it has a scheduler, it has sequencing, it has unlimited funnel pages. And we could call it XYZ, but we chose to call it the C-Suite Marketing Cloud. So that we could describe that this is not just but the way the company sells that system is a CRM system. Like, what the hell? you know? So we call it our full sales and marketing automation platform. So we focus in on what we do, and this is what you do, and you get that as part of your membership with us. So it's a better way of describing. Now we're still playing with it and launching it, because we're just launching it to members today. And of course now we're going out. We don't even have it up on our website yet, but now we're going out and starting to market it. But you just have to find out what resonates, right, with the person you're trying to sell, and what the, you know, where does that sit in the value. You know, we used to sell memberships. Well, people didn't get the memberships. Now we've got to sell solutions, right? So now you're focusing on what the solution is. So you come in with the executive package, you get your sales and automation platform, okay? Access with education, motivation, inspiration, a chance at monetization if you get engaged, and then you can start your brand activation package, which will give you, you know, a podcast, a book, a TV show, a course, you know, name you as an expert and advisor, and then if you're ready, you can graduate to a peer-to-peer community, right? So, you know, you just have to lay those things out in terms of the progression of that. And my guys were even this morning yelling at me that I'm giving away too much, and we have to break it up even more. So, which is fine. You know what I said to them? Show me it works. Until then, you sell the shit the way I say we're going to sell it, because of brute force alone, I can sell it. Okay? So now you show me how to finesse it, do it better, and I'm for it. Let's go. But until then, this is what we do. So.
Amazing. One thing I want to touch on, it wasn't in the initial questions, but you mentioned before you've met Jeff Bezos.
Wait a second. Did you send over questions? Because I don't even look at them. I just go. Let's go.
Never sent them to you. No, we don't like to. We want to surprise you. So you mentioned before you'd met Jeff Bezos before, Donald Trump.
Oh, yeah.
I heard this interesting thing the other day. I wanted to get your thoughts on this. All entrepreneurs have either an inferiority or a superiority complex. Do you think that's true or false?
Ooh, I think we carry both of those on each shoulder. I think we all do. You know, I had it's funny, I've been like the Forrest Gump of business, because, you know, we had a focus executive. So like I used to have to call up Steve Jobs about once a week to threaten to sue him, and he'd threaten to sue me, and we'd swear at each other and almost come to a fist fight. But we were still, you know, doing hundreds of millions of dollars of business with each other. So, you know, I got, or Bill Gates or whatever. I remember the time brought Bill Gates and Steve Jobs together at the Wall Street Journal Forum, All Things Digital Forum, and I was the sponsor of it. And I sat between them at lunch. It was the first time they'd seen each other in 15 years. So, you know, I've been in these pivotal moments like that all the time. But, you know, I was speaking to a group of A-class celebrities one time, because they were talking about building personal brands, because that's what we do. You know, today you've got to be a brand. As an entrepreneur, as a CEO, you've got to build a brand. Is nothing but a promise delivered. Let's be clear. But you have to, you know, sell the company, sell you. There's probably no differentiation between the two. And so this major Hollywood agency called and said, would you come and speak, you know, a little cocktail gathering to some of our A-class people about how to build their personal brands, because they think, you know, movie stars, it just happens. We've got to teach them how to do this. And so I went and spoke, and I'm in there with some really big names. You would know exactly who these people were. And we were talking about that inferiority, superiority thing. And they said, Jeff, what do you do when that little voice in your head says you can't? And I said, what are you talking about? He goes, you know, that little voice that gives you the doubt. I said, what are you talking about? And he goes, I said, I know what you're talking about. I said, I just stopped listening to that voice a long time ago. But, you know, you mentioned about my Hall of Fame speaking. I'm in 5 Hall of Fames. One of those is a Speaking Hall of Fame. And I still get nervous when I go up to go speak. Backstage, I've got to go pee or urinate 15 times before I go up there, right? Because I'm nervous, just like most people. We all have the inferiority, but the second I hit that mark on the stage, my job is to hit the mark. My job is to turn it on full speed. It's to go from 0 to 100 in 2 seconds flat, right? So that's what we have. So without a doubt, all of us are the same way. Just stop listening to the frickin' little voices and listen to the other ones, you know? Walk with some swagger, because you can. And that's what people are expecting to do. So we all have that, Zach. There's no doubt about it. It's always there. And luckily, we've got a support mechanism around us and people who can, you know, help us overcome it, oversee it, take up for certain things that we might be lacking.
And I think that leads nicely on to one of the things I wanted to talk to you about was in Think Big, Act Bigger, you were discussing the rewards of being relentless.
Yeah.
So do you think that's something that comes with Jeff, or do you think that's something that you've had to work on and become relentless over time?
I've developed it over time. I just learned that let's take sales. People say no. Okay, great. So what? Just keep saying no. I'm keep coming for you because I know that this product is good for you, and I'm going to keep coming back to you, and eventually you're going to see it my way. You're going to see that you're going to need it. So I don't stop, and so I'm constantly that way. And I put it in emails. I am relentless. #relentless. Because I care. I care about what I do and how I do it and the way I represent it, right? Because I work with a lot of thought leaders and podcasters and people who are using content to drive their businesses in the C-suite, either as a coach, trainer, speaker, author, entrepreneur, brand, enterprise, and I never stop. Why? Why would you? What's the worst you're going to do? No. Okay. Big deal. No. Keep going. And I think that's what you have to do. If this is not, if you got one word to say what we do as entrepreneurs, it's hard. It's freaking hard. Okay. And if it were easy, everybody would do it. Okay. That's why only entrepreneurs live this life, because it is hard, and it's okay. It's all right. That's what we thrive on. So just understand that's the nature of it. So you got to be relentless in this. Otherwise, you know what? You're just going to lose. And by the way, that's the other thing. It's not about losing fast. That's bullshit. Because losing, who wants to lose? That's for losers. I want to win. You want to win fast because you're going to fail. All right, you're going to fail, and you just need to understand you got to fail a lot, and you got to fail, but just fail fast, but win fast. The key is to get to winning. That's it. That's my goal. My goal is to get. It used to say it takes 10 no's to get to a yes. Okay, well, how fast can I get through the no's? That's the way I look at things. I try to look at it as optimistic. There's this old joke that Ronald Reagan used to tell about these two cowboys, and the ranch boss went out to the two cowboys, and there's 2 piles of manure there. And he told this one, says, you shovel that and throw it over that side of the fence. You shovel this and throw it over this side of the fence. One was an optimist and one was a pessimist. The pessimist looks over to the optimist, and he's up to his elbows in horse shit, and he's throwing it over the fence by his hands. He's not even using a shovel, and he's throwing it. And the pessimist cowboy goes, dude, what are you doing, man? He said, that's manure. Why are you digging that so fast and throwing it over? He says, well, with this big pile of horse shit being so big, there's got to be a pony in there somewhere. So that's the way I kind of go through life, and that's the way I think most people should go. Somewhere in there's a pony. So I take almost every meeting. I try to respond to everybody's emails as much as possible. Where
it looks
like it's got
come from? Is that something that from early childhood? Were there lessons along the way as you moved through teen years? Why is Jeffrey, who sits with us now, who is relentless? Why is he so relentless?
Because I didn't have it growing up, and I was poor. We didn't have things. We used to. Our big thing was to go to Bonanza for the steakhouse like once every quarter or something with a coupon, right? So that we just didn't have a lot of things, and I want my children to have more. I want to have a better life. I enjoy winning. I enjoy succeeding. So to me, those are fun, and I want to do it hopefully with a big heart. I have three conditions of satisfaction. I think we all have to have our personal conditions of satisfaction. For me, one is building wealth. That's how we keep score. And I want to have my family have a better life, which there's no doubt they have a better life than when I was growing up and what we're doing. And they're nowhere near they want to be. And I want my grandchildren to be at the same level. The second, I want to learn things. I want to learn how to do it. I'm a millennial in a baby boomer body. I'm a digital native in an old-fashioned body. All right, so I'm always trying to learn. I'm always reading. I'm always trying new things. I'm trying new software, new funnels, new this, whatever. And then the third thing is I want to have fun, Jack. I want to have fun at doing it. And if I can't have all three of those, I can kind of work around a couple of them, for a time period while I get to them. But really, truly, especially at my age at this point, nah, if I can't check
love
all
it.
three, I'm not talking.
And Jeffrey, as you've grown your persona in the public eye, and obviously you've been on the Apprentice, and you've grown, and you've got a great personal brand. Where do you think being in the public eye, how do you think that's helped you as an entrepreneur, and how do you think it's hindered you as an entrepreneur as well?
I've never had the second part of that asked before. Where it helps me, it actually helps me to frame my positioning, right, of knowing who I am, right? Because let me tell you what, people will call you and say, hey, you look pretty heavy on the camera. My wife's a personal trainer. Maybe you would like her number. Like who, dude? Who are you? Who are you trolls that think you can say this bullshit to me? Or they just come at you and attack you for whatever reason. They think they heard you say this or whatever. And what that has done is it's made me more resolute in being this, whatever that is, right? And so, and being transparent about it, because then I don't, it's like me coming to you earlier and saying this big brass American, right? And saying it like that, because I know that comes over the top in the UK, right? It comes way over the top. Like, oh, who was that? He's so loud. When I get on a train and go from London to Leeds, for instance, and people come over and go, shh, you're very loud. You're very loud. So. And I have to say, what did you say? Because I can't even hear you. You're so soft spoken. So it's made me be more of who I am. So everybody says you're always sure of yourself. Well, no, like Jack said earlier. No, Zach said earlier. No, I'm not. Okay, I'm not. But it's okay. I'm who I am, and I try to be who I am. So that's that part. The other thing is that it also presents a persona of that you're this. When we're all very layered in our personas, or that you might even say something to me, you're like, dude, that just hurt my feelings, like, but they see me as this 6'3" kind of John Wayne kind of, because I'm kind of like that, and gun carrying, cowboy boots wearing, horse, the whole bit. And yet there's a softer side of that if you get to know me, right? And so that's probably the other side of it. And so you're not considered for things, or you're not done that because they only see what they consider to be the persona and not necessarily the human being that's behind it. And I think that's sometimes. And I think that's the way you see people in big corporations, a hard CEO, it's got to cut. Well, dude, I've had to cut 8,500 jobs. I've had to, in order to save the company, to save what we had to do, and you didn't know that they offered me millions of dollars in compensation because I helped save the company, and I turned it down because we just ruined people's lives. Like, how could I take money like that as a bonus? If I'm trying to do the right thing. So things like, that's the side that you don't always see, and you just assume. You have to assume.
And how do you have those tough conversations, whether it's on a macro level, someone on a micro level, rather, someone not pulling the weight, or on those larger scales? What are the rules to having those tough conversations?
I think by being just totally transparent and stating this is what our objectives is and this is what our conditions of satisfaction are, and if that's the case, it's like me having a hard, the conversation this morning about with my business team, and they're saying, well, if we're going to scale, we have to do this, and some people take it as a criticism. Well, it's not a criticism. He's just stating a fact. He's being transparent. Healthy tension is good, and that's where you have it. I can tell you, Zach, where I one time owned a franchise business that did outsourcing IT, and I had a manager that I had to call into the office and in the franchise and say, he's a friend of mine. I said, his name was Joe. I said, Joe, gotta let you go. This isn't working out. It's not good for you. And it caught him by surprise. I said, this is what we said we were going to do. Shouldn't have caught him by surprise, right? If you really knew what his conditions of satisfaction were and so forth. But, Joe, this isn't working out, and let him go. And he was really mad. And then, by the way, I took the job at KODAK and sold the business and so forth and so on. But years later, I ran into somebody and said, oh, I just ran into Joe so-and-so. I said, oh, really? What did he have to say? He said, you were the best boss and mentor he ever had in his entire life. So you can have those tough conversations, right? And they can be devastating, but they can also turn out to be the best conversations. But regardless of whether they're good or bad, I mean, because who likes to have those, right? But you should just be able to have them, because that's what you have to do. That's that relentless part we talked about. You have to be relentless in that. And if your core values are, I'm here to take care of you, I'm here to do the right thing for everybody, I'm here based on values, and I'm leading with values, and my values are on my sleeve and on my heart and in my head, well, then you're going to do better. You're going to do the right things. And I think that's where you have to kind of I think it's very important for you to ground yourself in the values. We lead a group called the Hero Club, which is a value-based business leadership group where it's only CEOs that sign a pledge that say they're going to put people above profits, right? And they're going to do the right things for the right reasons. And if most of us did our businesses like that, we'd gross more money, we'd make more money, we'd lead the industry, we have employees who are more engaged, we have customers who are happier, and we have and vendors who wanted to do business with us. That's unbelievable. That's a hero business. And so that's, I try to live those same principles every day. I don't always succeed at it. I'm human. I make mistakes, don't do things right. Occasionally I'll cut a corner and I realize I shouldn't have done that. Occasionally I yell at someone. I have to go back and say, I'm sorry, had a bad day, apologize. You do those things.
Of course. It sounds like one of the things that you're saying is if everyone's aware of the expectation up front, the hard conversations, even if they come as a surprise, it's not a total cold slap in the face because you knew what the expectation was.
Yeah, 58% of employees don't even know what the purpose of the business is. The values of a business. How could you run a business that way? Like for us, we know that it has to be, we call it C-suite worthy. We're in the C-suite network. What's that mean? Well, what's C-suite worthy? Let's figure that out. What does that mean? What's it look like? What does it feel like? What are the words that we use? What are the images that we use when we show ourselves? And when I look at an invitation, God forbid, it better be C-suite worthy, right? Because I'm going to pick up the phone and say, or Zoom somebody, and who did this? Is this C-suite worthy? Does this look like the C-suite to you? That's the kind of conversations you don't want to have, right? But you're going to have, and you should have, and it should be just direct. It's not I'm yelling at you. I'm just saying this isn't up to our expectation. We set the bar here, and is it above the bar? Because it should be above the
Jeffrey,
bar. Below the bar,
I could talk to you all day. I was watching one of your
discussion.
motivational talks online on YouTube earlier, and I can see why you are a keynote speaker, because I'm feeling fired up now. I want to go and start 37 different businesses. Can I hit you with 3 quick fire questions before we let you go? What is the best book for somebody that wants to start a business or they're running a business? What is the best book, fiction or non-fiction, that they should definitely read?
It's an old-timey book written in the 20s and 30s, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. I read it every single year. Yeah, old school. But also I'll throw in The Salesman by Og Mandino. Okay, that's another one. It's a great book for salespeople. The Salesman by Og Mandino, who's passed away, one of the greats. And then certainly Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon.
Good choices. I've not read the second one.
Those are the Bibles that everybody should have to read.
What's your favorite quote, Jeffrey?
It's from Hamlet. So my ode to Shakespeare and to you there in the UK. Cry havoc and let slip the dogs of war. Cry havoc and let slip the dogs of war. Let's attack at all times.
One piece of advice for anybody that's thinking about setting up a business or they've just set up a business. What's the one piece of advice that you'd give them from where you're sat? Obviously, someone that's done it successfully hundreds of times.
Yeah, do not build it and hope they will come. Go and build something everybody wants to go to. That's it, So it's really about capturing customer behavior. If you capture customer behavior, you will be successful. But most people want to build it and do it their way. And they give this story about how it's all going to come to them. These people are going to do this, then they're going to do this, then they're going to do this.
I think one of my favorite takeaways is...
So if they don't do that, stop doing that.
We speak to a lot of companies and we have a lot of business calls. If someone's saying we're the only ones that do this, why? I don't want to see one person in a beauty competition. Where are the other ones? I love that. Jeffrey, if people want to work with you, they want to pitch you, they want to, I'm sure you've got loads of things that you could talk about and shout about. Where should people be looking for you? What should people be getting in touch with you for? What should they be checking out?
Wow, you can just look at Jeffrey Hayzlett, Hayzlett. You just look up Hayzlett, you should be able to find me. And I'm on all social media. I'm on LinkedIn, everything. You can find me. My email is jeffrey.hayzlett, HAYZLETT.com. Or excuse me, Hayzlett. I have Hayzlett.com
Amazing.
too.
Thank you so much, Jeffrey. It's been an
Hayzlett
absolute pleasure speaking to you today.
C-suitenetwork.com.
Thank you,
Thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate it.